pumpkin on your pizza, grandma's mole, and navigating the Camino de Santiago in a wheelchair. This week, it's experience curator Aimee Maldonado.
Traveling the world to bring you delicious dishes, tasty beverages, and interesting experiences. This is the Destination Eat Drink Podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
I'm Brent Peterson. Welcome to Destination Eat Drink, the travel podcast for foodies. Destination Eat Drink is for foodies who like to travel and travelers who love to eat. And this week, my guest is experience curator Aimee Maldonado. But first, take a moment and rate and review Destination Eat Drink on your podcast app. It only takes a minute, and it helps other foodie travelers just like you find the show. And I've got Foodie Travel Guide ebooks available for download at buymeacoffee.com/destination eat drink. My Portugal travel guide is just $9.99, and it has all 17 of my foodie city travel guides in one book. That's almost a $60 value for just $9.99 at buymeacoffee.com/destination eat drink. Aimee Maldonado's profession is law. She's a lawyer in Texas, but she's also what she calls an experience curator who helps people get the most out of their travels. Aimee's been to over 45 countries, and she's whirling the world on Instagram. Aimee dispels some myths about traveling while in a wheelchair, and she explains why traveling solo can enhance your travel experience. Plus, we talk lots of food like fried artichokes and gelato in her second home of Florence, Italy. Okay, I'm starving, so let's eat.
Destination Eat Drink.
Aimee Maldonado, welcome to Destination Eat Drink. I'm looking forward to talking to you from Italy today.
Likewise. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thanks for being here. You know, you told me you believe, and I'm gonna read the quote here, some of life's richest moments come from sharing a meal, tasting a fine vintage, or discovering a hidden culinary gem. Would you like to expand upon that thought at all?
I think through traveling, you learn how to live. You learn from other people that you share meals with. You learn from the cultures that the meals come from. It's just an amazing experience that you can't get without traveling and exploring the world and always being adventurous and open. One of the ways that I feel it's easier to do this is if you travel by yourself. When you travel with other people, you have a great time, but it's harder to have sometimes these conversations with locals because you're paying attention to the other person versus being open to conversations with strangers.
Wow, that's a really interesting thought that I hadn't considered before. You're kind of forced to put yourself out there when you're traveling solo. I normally don't travel solo. Me and my girlfriend have been traveling together for many years. And I think that is sometimes an issue, especially for me, that, you know, you shut yourself off. Luckily, she is very, very outgoing and loves talking to folks when we're out traveling. So she's the person that I rely on for that. Inevitably, depending on where you go, people will approach you, especially when you start pulling out the video camera and stuff like that. Aimee, you call yourself an experience curator, and I'm curious, how do you define that? What exactly does that mean, experience curator?
Being an experience curator to me is actually getting to know the person you're designing the experience for, whether it's for yourself or for somebody else. It's what is that person really like? What are their interests? What's their background? And finding experiences that are going to meet that. For example, there's lots of cooking classes in Florence, but finding the right one for the right person is the key. If somebody's into gardening, then maybe a cooking class that's going to be out on a farm where they grow a lot of their own food is better suited for them versus if somebody's really into shopping, grocery shopping, then a cooking class that includes a market tour would be more appropriate and more enjoyable for them.
Talk about some of those cooking classes in Florence, because these are getting so popular now. when I go to a new place, I love to experience the food. I go on food tours all the time. But now you're seeing these cooking classes, and sometimes they involve shopping for the ingredients and learning all about the culture behind these dishes. But do you have any specific ones that you particularly enjoy in Florence?
I've done many, and I try to do a different one every time I come, just so that when people ask me for recommendations, I can give them the most appropriate one for them. I really enjoy the ones that include the market tours, but also the ones that are done outside of the city, because they give you a different experience. You get some fresh air. You are usually in someone's home. You feel more like family than something that's maybe more commercial because you're inside the city with a big group of strangers.
So if I were really into, say, pasta in Florence, pasta and wine, let's say those are my two big things, where would you steer me, Aimee?
The one I've really enjoyed for pasta and wine that's it's actually outside the city in someone's home is by someone called the Accidental Tourist. And they come and pick you up in the city, and the house is out in the countryside. So it's a very relaxing, very enjoyable, and great wine along with the pasta. So it's a wonderful experience.
What's your favorite kind of wine?
My favorite kind of wine is Italian, of course, and it would be Amarone wine from the Valpolicella region.
Okay. Yeah. Tony, our mutual friend Tony told me about Valpolicella, and I think she really likes it as well. Have you ever enjoyed a glass of Valpolicella with our friend Tony?
Actually, I don't think we've ever had any Amarone from the Valpolicella together, because when we're in Tuscany, we're normally having Tuscan wine, but we'll have to do that.
Good idea. You are a full-time wheelchair user, and I'm wondering, as someone who travels so much, what is your approach? And when I say approach, I mean logistically. I wonder how do you handle this logistically with the flights and the transfers and, just getting around in general in Europe, which I think, well, we can get into this later, but I really feel, as someone who's been coming to Europe for 30 years, that it's maybe not as accessible as some places in the United States. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's about being open and also knowing what accessibility is for the individual person. Everybody says, how do you do it in Europe? And it's so hard. And I've traveled in multiple places of the world, not just Europe, but it's about having this open approach to saying, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to find a way to do it. And it always surprises people when I tell them where the 3 most inaccessible cities that I've been to in the world. And I've gone to over 45 countries. And to me, it would be Washington, D.C., New York, and Boston.
Wow.
Because there's a lot of old buildings that have stairs and there's no accessible entry to, versus in Europe, I think not everywhere is going to be accessible, but I think people try to help and they try to be more accommodating. One of the perfect examples for me is the Colosseum. It's ancient, yet they've put an elevator inside the Colosseum. Yet there's so many places in the U.S. that don't have elevators. And just being open to receiving help. So I was in Colombia last month, and there was a shop I wanted to go into, and there were 3 steps to get in. But they were very willing to help carry me in so that I could go into the shop. And the same with restaurants. Yes, there's not a ramp. It might not be traditional accessibility, but to me, accessibility is about still being able to do it. So I was still able to go into the shop. I'm still able to go into the restaurant. I'm just have to have that flexibility and openness to ask for the help and receive the help and find a way around it.
That's so interesting, because I would have figured that the Persons with a Disability Act in the 90s would have made things so much better. And I think they have in the United States, have made things much better from an accessibility standpoint. But you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying it's the people that make places accessible, even as much as, I don't know what you would call them, the accessibility ramps and things and elevators and things of that nature. Do I have your thought process down here?
Yes, it's really about the people, but it's also about the person themselves that has the disability, is being open to receiving that help, but also what their willingness is. For example, if I want to go on a boat tour, being willing to transfer out of my chair and maybe be without my chair on the boat. And I understand that's not possible for everybody, but for those that it's possible, there's some people that are willing to do that and some people that aren't. Some people that to them it's not accessible and they're not willing to do it if they're not going to be able to remain in their chair, which I totally understand and respect.
Aimee, you completed the Camino de Santiago. Tell me about that experience.
It was a wonderful experience. It was actually a trip designed for people in wheelchairs. So there were 7 wheelchairs and over 30 helpers. And we actually did the last 115 kilometers, not the full thing, because that's how much you need to complete to get your Compostela. And a lot of that for me was doing it so that I learned how to accept help, because you definitely need help to do it in a wheelchair. You can't do it alone.
Yeah, because when I think of the Camino, I think of rocky, dusty, unpaved trails that wouldn't exactly, they wouldn't be great for people that had any kind of mobility issues. Tell me how you did it, going from place to place, and how long did it take you?
So we completed the last 115 kilometers in about a week. It was a little bit less than a week, again, with the help of over 30 people for 7 wheelchairs. And there was, and you're right, there's rocks, there's rivers. There was a point where we hit a creek and it's like, okay, how are you going to cross? And we all had our own style. Some people wanted to do it on their own and they did it on their own, and it was very difficult and everybody was supportive. And I was just like, okay, what's the easiest way? Somebody's like, I'll carry you on my back. And I was like, sure, that sounds perfect. And somebody else carried the wheelchair across the creek. And it was just easy and simple. But it was that willingness to get that help and have that vulnerability to let somebody carry you on their back across a creek. And then there were parts where are very steep, even if there's pavement in some parts. In some parts, you're just going through the forest. And there has to be somebody there helping pull you up. But also some of them are so steep coming down that there needs to be somebody there harnessing the wheelchair so that you don't go flying out. So they're creating this friction so that you don't slip.
You have to have a lot of trust in other people, I would imagine.
Definitely. It's about trust and openness. And I did want to add, going through the forest was one of my favorite experiences, because we went through this forest. There was eucalyptus trees.
Yes.
And just to smell the scent of the eucalyptus, it was so relaxing. It was like being in another world.
There's a lot of Caminos that go up and down through France and through Spain, and we have them here in Portugal too. I know a lot of people who do them, and it's funny that you mentioned the eucalyptus, because to a person, people who come back always mention the eucalyptus, because there's eucalyptus planted here in Portugal as well. Tell me a little bit about the food you ate along the Camino.
It was very fun, because every day we would have breakfast before starting in the morning. And then we would have what we would call second breakfast. So maybe 2 hours into the Camino, we would stop, have second breakfast, bread with jamon serrano and cheese in it, or a pastry. And then, we'd walk again, and then we'd stop for lunch, and then we'd eat again, some more delicious local food. And it was all small places, and that's where you really get to meet the locals, and everybody's cheering everybody on and so supportive. And then you keep walking again, and then you meet other people on the journey along the way, and then you stop again and eat again. And because we were doing it in a group, everybody would always say that why did I always want to be the first one to finish for the day? And I was like, because I finish, I sit and wait at the stop and I have a drink and some wine and meet some local people. And it gives me a chance to interact while y'all are still finishing up.
Aimee, you're originally from Houston. You have Mexican heritage. Talk to me about some of your favorite foods from when you were growing up.
My favorite food from growing up would have to be the food that my grandmother would make. She was a great cook, and I remember everybody used to always go to her house and eat, and they would take friends and eat, and that's what everybody always talks about, all the dishes she would make. My favorite was the mole and the flour tortillas that I remember and miss the most, as well as the tamales. They were always great.
Everyone's got their own spin on the mole. What do you remember about the mole? What were some of the flavors? How did your grandma go about making mole?
I wish I knew how she made it because then I could recreate it.
Yeah.
I really don't know. I just remember it being delicious because it was the balance of the chocolate and the spices, and it was sweet but not too sweet. It was spicy but not too spicy, and just the consistency that there's many times I try them and they're either too thick or too liquidy, and hers was just balanced in every aspect.
Sounds delicious. Were either of your parents good cooks?
My mom's a very good cook. Everybody loves her cooking as well. Unfortunately, she got cancer last year and her taste buds have changed. So she doesn't enjoy cooking as much because she says she can't taste the flavors and doesn't know how it is. But I think she's still a great cook.
Nice. You work in the U.S., but I'm talking to you from your place in Italy. What is it about Italy specifically that brings you back time and time again?
Italy's home to me. It's where I feel like I belong. I tell people if there is such a thing as past lives, I think this is where I lived. It's relaxing. It's just everything about it. It's the only place where I'm calm. When I'm in the US, I'm very on the go. And here it's just like, oh, it's okay. I don't worry. I don't stress. Friends that have come to visit when I'm here from the US and see how I am there and see how I am here, they're really like, you're a completely different person. You just let everything go. You relax over there.
La Dolce Vita, right?
It really is. I tell people if there was one superpower I could have, it would be to be able to put my hand up on the walls here in Florence and then just know all the stories of all the people that have lived in these places, because there's so much history, and just walking the streets at night, it's almost like you could feel the people that used to live in the different buildings.
I feel the exact same way here in Portugal. We are kitty corner from a 15th century convent, and you can feel the weight of the history there. Like some stuff happened there. I don't know what it is exactly, but stuff happened there.
Exactly. It would be great to know those stories.
Let's talk about the food of Florence. Florence is in Tuscany. Tuscany is its own region of Italy, and like all regions of Italy, it has its own specific food and wine and desserts and things like that. So tell me about some of your favorites. What do you like to do? What's the first thing when you land in Florence after being in the U.S.? What's the first thing you look for?
Food and wine. Oh,
of course.
There's so many great dishes here. The best part is the simplicity of the dishes. They use local ingredients. You're not going to eat anything that's not in season. And it's not like I can say, I land and I look for this dish, because it depends when I land, what month it is. It's the dish I'm going to look for. And I think that makes it exciting, and it makes the food so good. And you know it's going to be great, but it's always something unexpected.
So what are you enjoying right now?
Fantastic fried artichokes.
Yes.
And even though this is towards the end of the season of pumpkin, I've had some great pumpkin dishes these last few days. So I arrived here 3 days ago, and I've already had pumpkin in different dishes. One was a souffle and one was in pasta. And I even saw it on pizza yesterday, though I didn't order that one. But it's dishes that I haven't had before, and they were great. The fried artichokes were just amazing and crispy. And I know there's lots more to come because that season's just starting.
The artichokes are so good, so plentiful in Italy. I can't imagine pumpkin on pizza though. That sounds crazy.
I've actually had it before.
Is it good?
I didn't have it yesterday, but yes, it's actually good. It's very different, but if you pair with the right cheese and the right toppings, it's great.
And, in northern Italy, I would maybe get pumpkin in my risotto. Would we see that in Florence?
So risotto's not typically from Florence. You might see it at some restaurants, but it's not going to be a typical dish you see on the menu.
Yeah. Makes sense.
But if you do, I have seen pumpkin and risotto here.
What about wine? We talked about some wine not from the region of Florence, not from the region of Tuscany, but what kind of regional wine do you enjoy when you're at your, and I'm using air quotes here, your home in Florence?
Basic Chianti wine, I love. That's just my go-to if I'm just going to have a glass. Now, if I'm at a wine bar here, there's so many wines to choose from this region. Everybody thinks of Chianti, but there's just so much more to it. And a lot of people also pivot towards a Brunello. And though Brunellos are great, I rather have some of the wines from Bolgheri area of Tuscany. To me, they're just rich and full-bodied, and I love them.
You talked about Chianti kind of being a everyday sort of wine. Is it still affordable in Tuscany? Because, in the last couple decades, the price has really gotten very high for Chiantis in the United States.
Yes, I think it's affordable. You also need to know where to get your wine. I try to stay away from the big commercial wineries. If it's a Chianti, I can get it in the United States. I'm not going to have it here. But when you go to these smaller producers, you get great Chianti at a great price, as well as other wines. And I would definitely say you want to explore the wines of the region. Go to a reputable wine bar in town and just sample the different wines. And it's so easy to do. And everybody's always willing to help and give great suggestions on the wine.
Okay, we're going to have to do that the next time we're in Florence, Aimee. We're going to meet you there. We're going to try some wines. We're going to go to a wine bar and sample several different ones.
Yes, that would be fantastic. And there's so many great places here. It's just from my apartment, there's 4 different wine bars that I love, all within probably 2 to 3 blocks distance.
And what about dessert? What about sweets? I love sweets. What would I expect to get after my meal or maybe for a little treat in the middle of the day?
Gelato, of course.
Yes.
Gelato is everywhere, and there's such great gelato shops here. One that's down the street from me actually has won some international awards. And even with that, it's the excitement of you go to the gelato shop every time you get to town and you don't know what flavors they're going to have, because those also a lot of times have to do with what's in season.
What's your favorite flavor of gelato?
I take after my dad on this one, pistachio.
Me too. I always say you can judge the quality of a gelato shop by how well they do pistachio.
I 100% agree with that.
What about a fruit flavored gelato or sorbetto? What do you like?
I would probably have to say strawberry if I'm going with something that's, probably strawberry, I would say.
Yeah, I'm a big lemon fan. But, you can like lemon and pistachio, just not on the same cone.
Exactly. And that's what I was trying to think, because I've had some great blood orange ones.
Oh, yeah.
But that you have to have alone. You can't mix with other things.
And I've been in gelato shops, not in Florence so much, but in Sicily, where if you order 2 flavors that they don't think go together, the gelato shop proprietor might not give you the cone. They might say, no, I'm not going to, these 2 do not go together. You can't do, I don't know, pick chocolate, hazelnut and lemon, let's say. And they're like, no, I'm not going to do it. So you're like, all right, exactly. I'll take 2 different cones then, and I'll put them together when I leave your shop, mister, because I like it that way. Yeah, the customer's not always right in Italy, I think.
No, and I love it. I think that's part of what makes it Italy. And if you listen to them, you're going to have the best experience because they're not going to lead you astray.
Yeah, they'll tell you it's a good marriage, is what they say. The two go together. It's a good marriage. Aimee, you definitely have the travel bug. What did you say, 40 plus countries that you've been to?
Yes.
What's next on the agenda? What are you thinking about? Are you planning any big trips?
So one of my big bucket list ones was to go to Colombia. I just went last month, had a great experience. And Turkey and Argentina are like the next two top on my list. I'm not sure when I'm going to go. I'm kind of starting to see when it fits in the calendar. It's hard when I always want to come back to Italy and it's like my home here. And so when I have the opportunity, I tend to come here, but I still do try to explore some elsewhere. So we'll see. Hopefully Argentina maybe around December and Turkey might be next summer.
Argentina would be amazing. And in December, it's summertime down there, so it'd be lovely. And there's lots of great Italian food in Argentina, so you're going to feel right at home, I think.
And fantastic wine as well.
And fantastic wine. Yeah, all the necessities of life.
I was like, I think we're seeing a trend in my travel.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know about the wine. I've never been to Turkey. Do they have wine in Turkey? I don't know.
I don't know. I think that's going to be a different kind of experience. It's probably not the thing to do in Turkey.
Yeah, probably not. But you'll have some great food. There's no doubt about that. They have amazing food in Turkey, so that'll be good. And are you a coffee drinker? You'll have some great coffee there too.
When I'm in the U.S., I'm not. When I'm here in Italy, I do. And so I'm excited about trying coffee in Turkey because I've heard they have some really good one as well.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Aimee Maldonado, how should folks get in touch with you, Experience Curator?
The easiest right now is to get in touch with me through Instagram. So my Instagram name is Whirling the World, and I look forward to seeing people there. And please reach out with any questions. I'm always willing to help. I know lots of times people have questions on accessibility, so just let me know how I can help.
Great. And we'll have a link in the show notes so that folks can get in touch with you as well. Well, Aimee, it's been a delight talking to you. It's been really interesting and fascinating and informative, but also really entertaining. And it's got me thinking again about Florence. It's always a place that I love to go to. So thank you so much for taking the time. It's been great having you on the show today.
Thank you for the invitation. I've had a great time as well.
Okay, that's Aimee Maldonado. And like she said, you can reach Aimee at Whirling the World on Instagram. Great insights from Aimee, right? And if you want to hear more from my interview with Aimee, including some more about her trip along the Camino de Santiago and her arrival at Santiago de Compostela, you can get that at my Substack. Members have access to the full-length interview, so become a member at destinationeatdrink.substack.com. Okay, that's it for this week. Next week, we're in New York City for the Arapa Lady, Little Sri Lanka on Staten Island, and tons of Brooklyn recommendations, so don't miss that. Until then, there's plenty of foodie travel at destinationeatdrink.com. I just posted a brand new video about the Principe Real neighborhood in Lisbon. We have a cocktail on a rooftop bar, a sandwich recognized by the Michelin Guide, and try the best chocolate sorbet I've ever had. High praise, I know, but I stand by it. You can see that by clicking on the video tab at destinationeatdrink.com or by going to my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@destinationeatdrink946. I also just published a brand new foodie travel guide. This one is for Lille, France. While Lille is technically in France, it has a Belgian vibe, and one of the best dishes in the city is originally from Wales. You can download your copy along with all my other foodie travel guides at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink, and thank you very much. Destination Eat Drink is distributed by the Radio Misfits Podcast Network and Ed Silla. Thanks, Ed. I'm Brent Peterson, and I'll see you down the road.
Join us next week for another culinary adventure on Destination Eat Drink. a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.